Hello, Civ fans. Thanks for joining us on our live stream today. We have a very unique presentation today because we're actually going to be talking about a modding tool. So the tool that we're going to be talking about is our WorldBuilder. Everyone who has a copy of Civ 6 has a copy of WorldBuilder installed on their machine. And we're going to show you how you can get to it, what you can do with it, and how you can create some great content that really liven up your games. So I'm here, I'm Ed Beach, I'm with the dev team. They let me in the host chair for some odd reason today. I have full control over the globe. But I'm with Dennis Shirk, our lead producer for Civilization 6, and Carl Harrison, our QA lead. So Dennis, why don't you start out and give us a little bit of an update on where WorldBuilder's been for the last couple months and what we want to show today.
We're making a lot of progress, much to the chagrin of everybody I keep assigning bugs and polish and improvement items to. But WorldBuilder has come a long way. We originally started with the last patch of splitting it out into a basic and advanced mode, because tackling the entire thing at once is a lot of work, because it is a development tool and it will always be an in-development tool. So our own developers use this to make more advanced scenario maps, advanced start positions, all of those things that are needed to create, for example, Outback Tycoon, we need in WorldBuilder. So we're tackling it from the ground up, and that starts with basic mode, which is the most basic premise of what WorldBuilder is: making a map, playing on the map. And so all of these tools, we're taking a lot of time to really debug, make it great. The reason it's hidden behind a setting right now is until our QA gives us a hearty thumbs up. We want to keep that behind there because we don't want anybody to just go into a place that might be on fire. So we've made a lot of progress, and you're going to see even more progress in the coming months. But for the time being, I'm going to walk you through with what you have now and give you a preview later in the live stream of what's to come.
And one thing I do want to remind everybody is that we just posted a video. Dennis, our voice of WorldBuilder, was the star of the show. That video went up this morning, so about 4 hours ago. And so that's sort of the quick 3-4 minute intro to how to get going with WorldBuilder and what you can do at a quick basic level. But this is going to be a nice live stream here because we're going to be able to take a deep dive, really show all the ins and outs of getting a map together. And then Carl's here to test it out.
Yeah, play on it a little bit.
All right, well, the first thing you're going to want to do, we've already done it, but I'll take you over to it just so you're aware, is go into your My Documents, My Games Civ 6 folder and open up a file called App Options. And in here, there's one thing that you definitely want to set, which is WorldBuilder. I obviously typed in the wrong thing. I went Enable instead of WorldBuilder. Or if you just scroll down, you'll find it that way too. But you're going to want to set that to 1. For the sake of what we're doing today, I'm going to have you do one other setting too, which is enabling debug, which is actually closer to the top. So if you enable the debug, where are we at, Carl? There we are. So we set that to 1 too. What we want to do is after we create a map, when you go into the game, you can actually quickly do a reveal all command, check out your view of what you've created in-game, and then you can hop back to WorldBuilder if you want to continue to make edits, etc. So once that's set, go ahead and save that, restart your game, and then off you go. I would like to make one mention, hashtag Carl's Achievements, to express my concern about how few achievements Carl has actually achieved. So with that...
This isn't my actual account, though. We're just on an account for the live stream that's separate.
We're talking about WorldBuilder now, Carl.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and under additional content, you're going to see a button up here at the top called WorldBuilder. We'll select that. We've got a few options here. We can import from an external editor. If you get the SDK, you'll see more information on how to do that, which is actually pretty cool. Or you can make a new map right from here. So we're going to go ahead and create a new map. Choose the rule set. So for example, we can do Gathering Storm, Rise and Fall, standard rules. We'll go ahead and do Gathering Storm because we like volcanoes. You can do a predefined script, but for this one today, I'm going to do an empty map because that's a lot more interesting. We can make something specific, which we have something in mind.
So one quick question in from the chat is this all available if you're a Mac user?
I believe it is. I need to make sure, but check your settings. I believe because it's all in game, that stuff's still available.
It's still the game engine running and the game engine providing all this content, so I don't see any reason why. Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and load in. This will take a while to generate. Now we've come into the game. We've got a big, full, nice, empty bed of ocean. The first couple things you're going to do is put down a shape. So we're going to start, I'm going to say we're going to make a shape of Africa because that's something that we can all be pretty familiar with.
It's also exactly where you spun the globe before we started. So once again, the globe just happens
totally lucky.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
It was a teaser, except for only like 2 minutes before we were actually.
Right.
But the you can see the pull-down menu here has a lot of different options. We're just going to start on terrain, and the easiest place is to start on grassland. But because we're mainly going to be living with plains and desert, I'm actually going to start by coloring with plains, and we're going to make our brush size large because making our big shape is just going to be so much easier that way. So nobody can make fun of my drawing skills early on, but you can either click to do single things, or you can right-click on the mouse button, on the right mouse button, and keep it held, and you can actually do a sort of a painterly thing going on with this. So I'm kind of making the top of Africa, of course. Like, you don't already know that that's exactly what I'm doing. This is going to be a little bit of an odd-looking Africa for a little bit, so bear with me while I get the general shapes out. Come around the horn at the bottom, come back up the top.
While Dennis is laying out the basic shape of Africa, I do want to reiterate, because a couple people missed the first couple minutes, but we're getting questions from chat about why do we have to enable WorldBuilder, why isn't it on by default? And as Dennis went over, it's still a tool that we're kind of running through the full validation process with our QA group, and just we don't want people to stumble into something that might cause problems. So we want to make sure it's something you have to opt into right now. And once we've got that to the place where we're 100% confident in either the basic mode or the advanced mode, then we'll be going ahead and making a default option that's on for everybody.
This is a hilariously shaped Africa so far. I can assure you my Africa that I started with yesterday was much cooler.
It was a little bit better.
It was a little bit. I think it was a total win.
Did you have your coffee today?
I had a lot of diet soda, which is probably not ideal.
I think you're getting there. That was the missing piece there.
Yeah, I had a little bit weird going on up there. So I'm going to go down to a bit of a fine brush now and just kind of fill in some of these gaps. That feels a little bit better. Not fantastic, but it's starting to feel like Africa. And of course, it wouldn't be, actually, let's take this about here just a little bit more. Take that in a little. All right.
And so people are also asking in chat, is this a feature I only get if I buy Gathering Storm? And I think you sort of alluded to that earlier. You showed right when we went into the WorldBuilder that there was a choice of which rule set you want to make your map for. So you can choose, I want a map that only plays with the base game, and therefore if I'm sharing it with my friends and they only have the base game, that'll be something I can share with all those people.
Correct.
But if you have friends that all have Gathering Storm, or you just want to create a map for yourself and you have Gathering Storm and you love those volcanoes and so forth, and geothermal fissures and some of the other advanced features of Gathering Storm, then you can go ahead and select that. So you have to, it should be a very conscious decision when you go in. Once you create a map for one of the rule sets, you can't really switch it after the fact. So
although you can load maps in other rule sets. So if you create a standard rules map, you can still load that in Gathering Storm rule set. You just won't have
while you're playing the game.
While you're playing the game,
right? But you can't put it into the editor and then start adding those features.
Exactly. And that changes things like natural wonders as well. All the natural wonders that are in Gathering Storm are specific to that rule set. So if you want those in there, you have to be on the Gathering Storm rule set, and they won't show up if you're on standard rules or Rise and Fall.
Okay, and Barney Murray says we need to add Madagascar.
You know what?
Way ahead of him.
I mentioned. Did you already do it?
Way ahead of him.
I mentioned that to you yesterday too, and you've already done it. I wasn't even looking.
Yeah, it was because you guys made me feel so bad about missing Madagascar yesterday that I was.
It's my job to make you feel bad.
I know, it really is. So we've got a pretty good shape. This is not completely ideal, but a good thing to do, a point of reference, is looking down at your mini map. You can actually see if your shape language is starting to form in a good place. And we're going to go with it just because you get the idea. So we've got a basic area now, and what we want to do is start filling in some terrain types: the desert, some grassland, some hills. A good place to start, grabbing an image off of Google Maps. Just do a search for Africa somewhere, and just go from there. Topographical maps, satellite images, they can all be useful. So we'll start with a medium brush here, and we're just going to paint in a large amount of desert. Now, regardless of how things are in real life, you don't want to have too much absolutely unbroken terrain of any type. So you want to make sure to just have a little bit of interest built in here and there, because otherwise when you play on it, you're just going to have large swaths of big, empty land. Same thing with jungles, forests. Always try to keep that stuff reasonable. Now, there normally is a heck of a lot more desert going on, but what we like to do with plains is a good foil for the desert, only because the color actually fits really well and it serves to break it up in game. Because remember, first and foremost, this is going to be a game. So you need to make sure that you have a lot of pieces present that are going to be playable and not just completely 100% historically accurate. So I'm just going to mix in a little bit of stuff here and there to break up the desert here and there.
I
Just a
appreciate that,
smidge.
since I have to play on this.
Yes. I'll be curious to see what you choose to play, Carl.
Well, that partly depends
seeing how
on what
the
you do with
map
the
is
map here.
actually
Yeah.
shaping up. Gonna put a lot more heavier hills up through here. Very hilly territory. And again, normally you might be tempted to just color this entire thing in with hills. You want to make sure that your units can actually get through there. It doesn't make for an uncomfortable start.
You're only saying that because yesterday you started with the plains hills brush, aren't you? You just painted everything with hills.
That was a mistake, yes. Let's come back to Plains Hills, get a little bit more stuff going on here.
And just to circle back one more time, I have a question in chat about whether you have to create a map from scratch, like we did this time, an empty map, or whether you can use the WorldBuilder that is part of Civ 6's game engine to give you an initial map to start with, and then you can edit it. And that's absolutely a great way to go as well.
Right.
We're not showing that today, but you can pick any of the normal map types, the continents maps, the Pangea map, the fractal map, whatever is your preference. Start with that and then say, well, this would be a lot cooler if we, added more volcanoes or, however you want to tweak the map. So that's certainly a great way to go in terms of, you actually have less of the multiple layers of things that you need to create, like Dennis is showing you right now, if you start with a game engine generated map to begin with.
Now, mountains are going to be your biggest temptation because mountains always look awesome in game to just do huge, long stretches of them. And try to resist the urge, because having long stretches of mountains will hinder your movement a little bit. It can be a little bit unfun. When you run into that, it depends what you're going for when you're making your map. You might be one of those things where you're going to try to do a fortress of your own. But generally, again, just try to keep things broken up. Ed, what natural wonders are we going to need in here?
Okay, well, since we're in Gathering Storm, we can do the White Desert, which was a brand new Gathering Storm. It has its...
I would like to let everybody know
name.
that as you watch us struggle with this list,
Sahara.
this is fixed. This is all in alphabetical order now, which is nice.
It's way down at the bottom.
Way at the bottom.
I saw it down there.
Sahara.
Sahara El Beida.
There we go. And where are we going to put that up in the Sahara here somewhere?
Yeah, up towards Egypt is probably the most appropriate place. And that's a
Drop that
4-tile.
down.
Yep.
And what else are we going to...
And we need the Singy over on Madagascar.
Yes. Let's see if I can find Singy.
And
Put that right there.
there's a certain mountain that definitely needs to be right in the
Yes.
plains in the middle of Africa.
You just missed
Just
it.
past it?
Yep. Up a little bit. A little bit more.
Looks like these are in order of our
Yes, they
release.
are.
They're sort of base game and
then alphabetical, yeah.
and then the DLC to the DLCs.
There it is.
Yep.
Kilimanjaro, which is going to be about there-ish.
And there is a question about whether the natural wonders can be rotated for those multi-tile ones.
Not yet, but you will be able to. It's something that we've been working on.
Right, and those are the kind of, sort of advanced tweaking features that we know we want to have, and that's why we consider this, definitely a tool that we're still hot on development of.
Yes. No, I've neglected our good friends over here in Madagascar. So I'm going to give them a little bit more action here, a little bit more grass.
I think you need
edges.
some actual grassland and not just
Yeah, I
plains
need
and
to
desert.
start doing that here and there and everywhere.
Another question that we're getting is about knowing the rules for terrain placements of various things. So when we get to things like marsh and woodlands and jungle, those features that we need to be put down, or even for these natural wonders here, does the editor enforce that you put things down in legal spots?
In this version, in the street code that you have now, it doesn't enforce all of it. It only enforces some of it. In an upcoming release, you're going to see a lot more of that coming out, which is very nice. We've been spending a lot of time in basic mode. Sean Seckman's been spending a lot of time in advanced mode because we know that there's a lot of bugs currently from our advanced mode users that he's squashing one at a time. People will also be happy to know that city states are now fixed. So before, city states weren't being properly generated when you loaded in one of these maps into game. That's now corrected, which is nice.
And so at a high level, what's the difference between the kind of things you can create with basic mode versus what power the advanced mode gives you?
Sure. So if we're actually in here in just this mode, you'll notice that I am drawing a map. I'm going to be putting down rivers. I'm going to be doing goody huts. I'm going to be doing cliffs, coasts, resources, all that stuff. Switching to advanced mode is basically means that I'm going to suddenly have a lot more in here, down to continent ownership, start positions, cities, buildings, districts, yada, yada, yada. Pretty much anything that you could possibly want to make a scenario, if you're really in there. But again, I want to stress that advanced mode is there because there are bugs, because there are challenges. There's documentation for this online. If you go online, there's a lot of user documentation, but there's challenges in there because it's not polished and spit shined and ready for people to go to just make something. And it'd be the equivalent of you going into a saloon to play some cards, and you occasionally win at cards. Other times, gremlins erupt from the bar, destroy the salon, and steal your horse. So we're just saying we're not guaranteeing that won't happen if you're in advanced mode. So that's why we're really focusing on basic mode, making sure that this is a
WorldBuilder with
really
gremlins.
cool place.
Dennis has been having, spent enough time in WorldBuilder recently. He's having some interesting visions about it, I think.
Yes. Well, it's
So,
funny
so
that
I guess at a high level, the way I like to look at it is basic mode is getting the terrain and the landscape in place.
Yeah.
And then everything that sort of comes with placing human civilization on top of that, city-states, start positions, pre-placed improvements, control of territory, that's all advanced mode kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if there's actually reefs down there, but I thought that would be really neat to do reefs. So they're there now.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Well, in general, I think that's always true, is trying to break up long stretches of terrain with, we should add some oases and some marshes, all those kind of things.
Also some volcanoes where there aren't volcanoes, because volcanoes are fun. Now, I'm also going to take a little bit of time and add some deciduous here, there, and everywhere, because whether they absolutely exist, you need a little bit just in terms for game balance. Obviously, in the center strip, we're going to be putting a lot of jungle. But otherwise, just for gameplay, we're going to want enough in some of these more fertile areas to keep gameplay interesting.
Okay, we have a question here from Cool Davey, who
Cool
Davey needs to know this, but I've seen a lot of people asking about this. Can we expect that in the future we're going to allow flooding of rivers that were created in WorldBuilder?
Yes, the funny reason is, it's actually not funny, it's incredibly frustrating. There's a lot going on under the hood to have rivers flood.
And I wrote a lot of that
Yes,
code.
so when the engine places rivers, the river system, flooding system is very happy.
Right.
When WorldBuilder or user places rivers, the flooding system is not happy. So we're actually working hard on that. We're not telling you exactly when it's done yet, because I'm not going to do that because it's not done yet. Ken is currently back at his desk at this moment pulling his hair out,
He
working
is,
around the
because I
problem.
talked to him almost exactly an hour ago. He came by and we talked for 10 minutes on how exactly the generated portion of the river system works, so that when our own internal map generator is creating rivers, and that's a very controlled situation.
Yes.
We get all the data lined up just the way we need to be able to flood the rivers. As you'll see in a few minutes here, when Dennis starts putting down the Nile and the Congo, it can be a little haphazard in the WorldBuilder. Users don't necessarily have to create all the tiles of the river in exact order from the mouth of the river to the source of the river, those kind of things. So the data is coming into the engine in a much less clean fashion, and so it's definitely a tricky problem. But we're working on it because we really want that feature. We want floodable rivers. We want that allows you to put hydroelectric dams down. All those kind of things would
Right.
Really, you'll have the full set of gathering storm features once we have that all working.
So with rivers, it's a little trickier. You don't just go in and click on a hex. You have to click on a hex edge. So you'll see that. Now you can hold down your right mouse and do that. You might get some spare spars if you're sloppy like I did here. You can just go back in and right-click it to get rid of it. Or you can do it one at a time depending how exacting you want to be with the tool. As I mentioned before, if you want to have fun, as long as you have a fire extinguisher around, draw it in a circle and watch what happens when you try to load in the game. We're addressing that, but it's not addressed yet, so if you try that in the meantime...
There are some people who watched our video from before because
Yes.
I'm getting a lot of comments say, make a circle with a river.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want to show that because then we're going to have to all sit here awkwardly watching as Carl restarts the game after we try to load into it.
Yep.
So we're just...
I deal with enough bugs already. I don't need another one because of
Yes.
your map.
So I'm not going to be too exacting with our rivers right now. I'm just going to get some good fertility going here. We're all about the fertility here, Fraxis.
Yeah.
It's all about the fresh water. At least that's what Ed tells me all the time. That's why I don't.
Nile, you're working on a Congo-ish river.
Yep. Got to feed this
We need
rainforest.
something in Western Africa, and then
Got a little bit coming down here on the desert side. And even if a river doesn't exist, if you want to make something playable, get something a little more fertile to make sure you have valid start positions. Don't be afraid to add some little spur rivers here and there, just to make sure that you have some fertile starting positions. It makes for a little bit more interesting of a game. We are missing some lakes up here, though, so let's go ahead and switch back briefly.
You talked about how you can just click individually or click and drag. Did you mention that those have to go on the hex edges?
yeah. you do.
Yes.
Okay.
But the one thing we didn't talk about with hex edges is cliffs.
Cliffs,
So
right.
we need to touch on how cliffs work. I'll let Dennis get to that right after we got a few lakes in here. He's got a nice Lake Victoria. Working on a Rift Valley there.
Yeah. This is probably a little lower than we normally would have it. But we can just make it however we want.
Yeah, we want it Africa-ish.
Africa-ish.
It doesn't need to be Africa precise.
Right. All right, let's get some more
I was gonna say,
river
we can get a
action.
river over here on the west side,
Oh yeah.
in case that's where I spawn.
Carl's all about the west side.
Don't do that.
Sorry.
Don't do that.
All right. This is probably the longest portion that you'll do is getting a good river spread going. Oops.
And I was gonna say a little further north.
Yep. Carl's impatient.
No, I
He's
just want to
like-
make sure that there's spots for me to settle
You
on.
can admit that this is probably the best Africa map that you've ever seen.
I
if you
could
want.
admit that.
So up here, even though there's not technically rivers, we like to just put a few spars in, just to give a little bit of stuff. We'll call them creeks. There's nothing wrong with a few creeks out here in Africa. It's all good. Extend some of these in. I'm curious to see where the game will start Africa or start Carl.
I think you can call them wadis. That's the
There you
dried
go,
up-
yes.
dried up riverbeds in the Sahara.
I like that. Okay, so let's put in a few other bits here because we have some marshland and stuff that we want to put down. Ed, should we put any snow down? Oh, that's a feature. Should we put any snow down?
Well, the Canadian Civ's going to be sad if we don't have any snow or
Right.
tundra. But finding a legit spot for it in Africa is a little tough.
Little
Maybe
tricky.
up in the Morocco area. There's the Atlas Mountains up there. That's pretty high.
You could
but-
always make a little island someplace that has some tundra on it in case
Yeah.
we get
maybe,
Canada.
Maybe we need a special off-map Canadian homeland.
Yeah. I put down a little bit of, I'm going to need more grassland if I'm going to put more marsh down. I put down a little oasis there for when Carl is wandering in the desert, as is known to happen from time to time.
So getting a couple questions in chat about if we're going to talk about how you share these with other people, how you get them so, you know, other people can play your maps and stuff like that. And I think that's something we'll touch on a little bit, but towards the end of the stream here, yeah.
That's a more advanced feature, but I'm going to at least tell you or point you in the right direction. We've got more exciting features regarding that coming up. If you want to paint different continents, if you want to play with the continental divide stuff, you can, but on the continent drop-down, we're not going to bother with that because we're going to live on one single continent. In a future version, we're actually going to have cliffs that actually get placed down automatically. If you want to do them manually for the time being, just go to the hex etches, just like River. Typically, they exist on the sides of hills, but in a future version, those will also come along for the ride and automatically show up. Resources, I'm not going to do just yet. Goody huts, if you want to place them down. Tribal villages, technically. Sorry, Carl. He always corrects me.
Do you have any floodplains?
Not yet, but I will.
That's something we should get a few of, at least on the Nile, I think.
Yes. Put down some exploration goody huts. Normally, I'd be much more considered with where I'm putting these. Technically,
Do you still have the brush sizes when you're marking continents? Is that something that?
Yes, with continents, definitely. Where are we headed back to, Ed?
The Nile floodplain was a request here.
Floodplains, desert.
Ledaverix wants Egypt floodland.
Yes, I need to get more desert up into Egypt here so we can do that a little bit more. So let's go ahead and change our palette back to terrain. We're going to give ourselves a little bit more desert along the Nile.
And the Lady Codex really liked our idea of our Canadian tundra islands. So
I think so too. Yeah.
That.
Just make a large brush and just tundra.
Desert floodplains. Got a little bit more going on here. Because Egypt. All right.
But this is Gathering Storm, so we have the other types of floodplains down at the bottom of the list, I believe,
we
as
have
well.
a couple, don't we? Let's see.
Grassland and plain floodplains.
Plains, floodplains. We need some of those, yes. Scatter some of them around. All right. And let's see if there's any other cool things. Geothermal. Let's get some geothermal going. Now, we also are interested in the short future. We already have a scatter resources. We want to do this for a couple other things too. So if you don't actually feel like doing some of this stuff on your own, you're going to be able to press a button and have it scatter everything for you, which could be quite handy. And lastly, because I can't be happy with just playing on Africa, I instead am going to, if Pete were here, he'd understand, but if you tap this shelf out here in the Atlantic just so, what can happen is a continent will pop up. Used to be there long ago. It's not there anymore.
Ancient Greeks knew about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to just go ahead and add that in, and it's obviously the best continent over here because it doesn't have any desert, and it ignores the fact that it's sitting in the part of the band of the world that would normally give it lots of desert because it's just that awesome. Carl knows what I'm talking about.
Do I?
Yes, I totally do. Give it some nice little mountain stretches in the middle here. Give it just a little bit of plains for color. And just in case for some reason if somebody starts as Canada, I'm going to do that. It's a shout out.
Not just a little bit
Shout out
more.
to Canada. Hold on. I'm not done yet, but wait. And then we're just going to do that because it's like San Francisco. It's a total microclimate.
I like the name chat has for
Right.
this. Urisim has named it let me see if I Can Atlantis.
Perfect.
Can Atlantis.
And also, just so Carl has something to look for, we're going to make sure to get a little shallow water action going between some of these areas.
Oh. And we have one user who's saying we forgot one of our natural wonders, the Eye of the Sahara.
Oh,
snap.
true.
All right. Is that
There
it is.
gathering?
Yeah,
Up
it's just
a
up
little
up-
bit.
Yeah, it was
little bit.
Rise and
There we
Fall, I
go.
believe.
All right. Where should we put the Eye of the Sahara, Ed?
It goes.
somewhere right
there.
over
Yeah.
here, about there.
Yep.
Yep.
Boom.
Oh, very cool.
We've been eyed. All right, so now we're going to scatter our resources. We can click this. It basically scatters everything for you. That's a better place to start than putting them all down yourself. That's nothing stopping you from doing that, but it's easier to come into here, scatter them first, and then come back and revisit. I can tell already that this is going to be a very popular part of the desert.
Oh, wow. Lots of well.
But again, because this is the most awesome
Can you
place.
rescatter if you sort of want to
You can.
play with it a couple
Yeah,
times?
so
and
click clear.
Now you just got rid of all that oil.
I know. Now
see if
maybe
we
I
got
shouldn't
oil
show
there
Carl.
again.
It is desert, so there's probably going to be a lot of oil. So there's some. It's scattered out a little bit more now.
It's a little differently.
Yeah, a little bit more now. But this over here, because this is the best place ever, land of milk and honey. So what we need first is some milk. So give us some milk and some honey.
Do we have a honey resource?
We don't, but we have what we have just for
Bees.
future planning. We have shipwrecks. So milk and shipwrecks. So I'm going to put some of those down first, just because they were here. Toys. These are obviously
I don't think you
projects
should place
go
that
in
on
there.
the map.
No, those are also gone in the future because we don't want to be putting down Gene's resources when you're in WorldBuilder. No, actually, I was looking for uranium because that's almost as good as
U is near the end of the alphabet.
right, but we're in different alphabets here. See, if we go to U,
Yeah,
it's not going
that's
to be there.
that's the luxury resource. You need to go to
Yeah.
the strategics. and then-
Strategics are
so
at the bottom.
bottom.
There we are.
There we go.
So we're gonna put some
Now,
uranium.
I'm not
down
even
here.
going to get to see this. We're not going to be playing long enough for uranium
Yes, but
to matter.
the point is that you'll know it's there.
But could you use something that is actually going to be relevant for me?
Now, just so you know, if you go over here and switch to plot, so if you can click on here, you can actually edit these space by space too. So if you want to do something different, you can. So for Carl, I'm going to, well, not for Carl yet because I'm already on the wrong hex. So for now, I'm going to change that to no, I'm not going to change that to uranium either. It doesn't want me to.
It's because it's probably not a valid tile. For
Right.
that.
So, but for the sake of Carl, I am going to put down some delicious, delicious oranges
Okay, I appreciate
because he's
that.
looking for some citrus.
something that will actually display
Right.
in the time that I have to
He's
play
big on fruit. So this is pretty much the best continent.
There's be no room for districts there.
You don't need districts when you're there. Everybody's wearing togas. It's all peace and love. So now the one important thing that you're going to absolutely want to do, and I can't see it because it's behind our window up here, so I'm going to click in the vicinity. There, I got it. Up in the upper left-hand corner is the settings one. This is important, otherwise anything you save is going to come up as Untitled Map Mod, and that's no fun. So you're going to want to edit at least these two, so the map name and the mod name. The mod name is the package, so we're going to go ahead and say Alt Africa as the mod, and then as your map name for the map itself, Alt Africa. And then close that. Oh, and I forgot to do one thing, Carl, because this is My Africa, which is what's great about WorldBuilder. And My Africa has this very mysterious ocean in the middle, which I think would be a lot of fun. And I'm gonna kill some of this other stuff on here too. So when we have this in the middle,
You got water uranium there too.
I do have water uranium. I'll have to get rid of the uranium here.
Just switch to coast instead. And click that.
Doink.
Yep.
So I'm going to put just a smidge of grassland in here. And on this scenic vista, I obviously need a grassland mountain because that's cool. So I'm very happy with that. I'm not going to click scatter resources again because it'll erase all of that precious
your
work that we did.
custom
So instead,
resources out on the
I'm going
island.
to put more oranges for Carl out on this island. And, you know, the sea will be teeming with fish.
Are you worried about Carl's scurvy
He
incident?
He told me what he ate for lunch, so I felt that more oranges were needed.
Okay.
So that's our really strange version of Africa. We're going to go ahead and do the last most important part, which is saving it, because if you don't save it, you're going to have a bad time. So we'll call that Africa. And go ahead and save that map. Now, once that's all done, when we exit to the main menu, this will have already enabled itself, and I'll show you in the additional content. So you can see right here, it's already ready for action, the Alt Africa mod, so you don't have to do anything there. And if we actually go in to create game, I'm gonna hand this over to Carl. He's gonna be able to select the Alt Africa mod, choose a sieve, and play on it
All right.
in his quest for citrus.
Nicely done,
All to
Dennis.
Africa. These are listed alphabetically, so because you picked an A name, it shows up first, right there. And because you put lots of hills and it's fairly hot, I'm going to play as Nubia. I'm going to put this on online speed so we can get through as much of the game as possible.
You want to do a later start?
Yeah, and let's do a later start.
Because if you have to watch Carl play till he gets boats, we're going to run out of time. What was your most interesting map that you've created in all the scenarios that you've done? If you think backwards,
Well, I love the one I did for Gifts of the Nile.
Yeah.
Because it was like very zoomed in. So we actually, every tile of the Nile River is a hex wide.
So you can actually navigate the Nile.
And we were able to get the artist to create cataracts as a
that's
separate new terrain type.
Yeah.
So you could see the Nile River just flowing down through there. And we allowed boats to navigate up and down the Nile, but when they hit a cataract, they had to slow down. What I found out was during that time period where Nubia and Egypt were fighting, they would portage their boats through the cataracts. So they would they couldn't sail up, but they would get guys to haul them up on ropes and chains and all that kind of stuff. And so we just made the movement really slow on those tiles, and that worked great. So I guess that, and then the Civil War scenario from Civ 5, where it was similar in that we could zoom in and rivers would actually be
River
one
was a
tile
whole
wide.
hex
Yeah,
wide.
so I think
cool.
those were definitely favorites for me.
Ironclads going up and down the river. That was amazing. All right. It looks like Carl's loaded in.
And I think we're actually where Nubia historically is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Lake Victoria's
Yeah,
right
I think
here.
you're at the base of the Nile
Yeah.
by the looks of it.
Wow. So the start positioner knows its stuff. Elephants, that's also appropriate.
Although you've got a little bit of a hike to get to the mystic island of Citrus.
That's true.
I have faith in you.
I think.
Yeah, you might want to get a horseman to get over there, I think.
No, we've got iron, but no horses.
Carl
So
goes
I'm
faster
gonna go with swordsman.
Okay.
Let's see here. We're gonna need production.
And this is also a great example for us to show off something that we don't typically emphasize, which is our advanced starts. So this is a classical start, right?
Yes.
This is a classical start.
Okay, so you have all the ancient texts learned. So both text and civic tree, that's all filled in for you, and that's the same for all the other players in the game. And you start with like 4 units, I think. You start with a settler or a builder.
A settler, builder, a scout, and
And
a
a
spearman.
spearman.
Yep.
Although the builder, I think, actually comes in when you settle the city. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But in general, that's the way all of our advanced starts work, is you sort of are going to get kind of a quick way to boot into the game with a lot of things done for you. You might even get a building in your city for free. Do you get the monument or the granary for free?
I did not start with any buildings. No.
Okay.
I
That's
think a classical
sort of,
start is a little too early.
yeah, in the medieval and the Renaissance
Yeah.
starts, you'd probably start getting those. And, it's just sort of a great way to jump into a game and, if you want to get right to the action quicker.
Right.
So we use it a lot for multiplayer testing. We use it a lot if we want to test like air combat. We'll just have everybody start with a modern era game, something like that. So you can see just in terms of like the build queue that Carl has here, he's got lots of options in terms of things to build, and it's kind of a good, fun, alternate way to play.
I always pictured Africa as being bigger than this.
I think it is.
Well, what size did you set for
It's
the map?
small.
You used a small
Yes.
map. Okay. so-
Typically, we would have done it bigger, but we never would have gotten through the.
Right. In order to get it
Creation.
finished in time for Carl to
Yes.
have some useful time playing it, we
Right.
wanted
Yes.
to keep it. So that means that this will, by default, have 6 civs
Yes.
that Carl can meet. So there are 5 other players in the game. We can see that rise and fall features are in place because we're getting our historical moments. Have we ever had anything gathering stormish happen
Depends
here
if he
yet?
runs over and runs into his first volcano. We
Oh,
got
with
some
this
geothermal.
There is
fissure.
one down here
Yeah,
somewhere.
so we definitely know that we have both of the expansions in play here.
Got a barbarian camp that spawned up here. Let's take care of that with our Patati archer. Mediterranean sieve.
Yeah, we can stretch that out. We can make that a thing. Just depends if he's coming from the north or the
Oh
south.
no, he's to the south.
Ah, okay.
Never mind. I'm gonna find that island. Oh, there's the ocean. Somebody's already
Is
there.
that the ocean or our inland sea?
That's what I mean, the inland sea.
Ah, okay.
Somebody's already found it.
Really?
Yep.
And we'll let Carl play it out for a few turns here, and we want to take a peek at the reveal all in Debug that'll actually help you to iterate on your map a lot more quickly once we play this through just a couple more turns. Because while you can do this cool thing in WorldBuilder, it's what it really looks like and what it feels like that'll play it out. So don't be afraid to play with it a little bit. See if your areas are too small, too cramped. If you've got strings of features that are a little too clumped together, if you think that things are just too scattered, like single hexes of a certain terrain type can sometimes make things a little confusing or a little bit too checkerboardy. But doing a good old-fashioned reveal all will show a lot of that off.
And it's nice and quick to go back and forth between the editor
Yeah.
and the game. So it's not the kind of situation where it takes you a long time to get that kind of rapid iteration that you want.
Right.
Well,
I don't think-
Shaka looks at home here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be getting that citrus.
No, he's between you and the citrus.
He has already claimed one of the
yeah.
tiles.
That would be a fun battle, though. The Nubian archers in the classical era, they're a little bit out of date, but probably still super strong up against the Zulu.
Yeah, but if he gets his MP, then I am definitely outmatched.
Yeah.
He only has spearmen right now.
All right, Carl, let's take a broader look at it. We're going to have him go ahead and hit the tilde key in the upper left of your keyboard. And we enabled this by turning on the debug menu and the app options that we talked about at the beginning. But go ahead and type in reveal space all. And this will trigger a few pop-ups that you just go past or hit escape, whichever, and you can get past all the
Find
natural
all our
wonder
natural
reveals.
wonders.
And go ahead and hit tilde again to dismiss that. And now we can actually get a good look at the land that you created in WorldBuilder. And when I talk about iterating over it, this allows you to quickly come into game, see how it's rendering. Like you can see our desert mountainy area down south, just north of South Africa, looks a lot more sparse than it does in the real world. That might be a good target for just getting a little bit more denseness with the hills and the mountains along there, just to kind of frame in that southern desert a little bit better. But I'm kind of digging how everything else is looking in the middle.
Yeah.
I like the rainforest band. That's feeling really good. A lot of good places to play. A lot more open over here. I might go a little bit heavier with the desert and the plains in the northwest.
This is something else that happens when you reveal all. You'll meet all the civs.
You will meet all the civs on the next turn.
And find all the natural wonders.
Yes.
The natural wonder reveals always go first, then all the civ reveals.
Yep.
Right.
After you make one move that
Yep.
sort of triggers them to go into their meeting animation.
I think I'd accidentally right-clicked somewhere and so it caused a unit movement. And certain
And then the
navigation.
historical moments.
Yep.
Yes. All right,
See
so
if anyone got this over here. Nope.
the barbarians have it.
The barbarians.
But look at
have
that fantastic island.
it. It is pretty nice.
It's a place you want to hang out.
I actually really like the look of the shallow water out through here. That looks
Yeah,
pretty
you can have a lot of fun with that to make some interesting connections between scattered continents, which is always fun. So with that, that's a basic rundown of how to, within, I guess, the last 45 minutes, we ripped through, made a really fun, entertaining map to play on, loaded it up, and we're already playing on it. So we would love for people to continue just trying this out and hammering away on it and watching for when the next update hits, because there's going to be even more awesomeness with that. But for the time being, Carl, what I'd like to do is hop out of this version and give you just a quick preview of some of the stuff we're already working on for the next version of the game. Now, you mentioned earlier about how do I get my maps up onto Steam Workshop?
Right.
So the current way, and you can look this up online, you got to install the SDK toolkit. So if you actually go into the tools section, if you own Civ, you'll see the Civilization 6 SDK and assets downloads. Grab the tools version of that, and inside that SDK will be documentation and I believe it's called ModBuddy and a few other tools that you need. But basically read the documentation and it'll tell you how to use ModBuddy to upload this mod you just created to Steam Workshop. In future iterations, we're actually going to build that directly into WorldBuilder. So right from within WorldBuilder, you're going to be able to go upload to Steam. It'll
That's nice.
have the information right there that you can upload it. So there'll be a nice influx of new maps and fun stuff coming right in, which will be really cool.
We'll get everybody used to all the core mechanics of building maps right now, and by the time we are ready with that update, they'll have great stuff, and they'll be ready to share it with all their friends and get it up there for all sorts of use by the community.
And WorldBuilder is not the only modding tool that we're actually aggressively working on. We're working on things across the board. More work on the SDK itself, more work on the tools. Civ Fanatics, Reddit, once again, we are watching. So all of this feedback's important. I believe there's one on Civ Fanatics called State of Modding, which we're in all the time because that's actually very helpful in helping us chart our own roadmap to getting all of our tools and our modding tools elevated for everybody so they can keep creating content and keep sharing content in the game, which is very cool.
So you want me to load the map up or just
Yeah, I think
let's go ahead and load the map up then.
So Carl is now taking the map we just created, but this is an updated, not yet released version of the WorldBuilder. So you'll see a few things in the next 5 or 10 minutes here that were not available in the version that we showed for the last 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But it gives you a glimpse of what we're working on and what we'll be rolling out the next time we do an update.
All right. So we are going with a big updated interface. There's a lot of stuff that's still in progress because we're still big at work on it, but everything is contextual and a lot of apps like you're used to working in and a lot of graphics apps. So aside from not just bugs, but just general usability across the board, we're really making great strides to make this an amazing tool, including integrating a lot of, oops, that was the wrong button. Integrating a lot of stuff that we have in the full game so you can get quick looks at the shape and size of everything. Making sure that we're integrating all your feedback, a lot of the polished bugs, the rules so that we know why you can't place something somewhere. So all of that validation is in place.
Right.
For example, we want to make sure that you're not going to be closing rivers in a circle, things like that. So a lot of work to come. And also, again, in advanced mode, all of those great tools are all going to be available to you. So if you want to build your Civ, build your culture borders, if you're one of those people that want to try to create a scenario, again, I encourage you to get the SDK, read the documentation, go into the communities online. There's communities on all kinds of different sites between Reddit, Civ Fanatics, Politan that have big modding communities that you can, pinprick for information just on diving in. But just be aware that this is where the action's at right now, and this is the stuff that we really want to
And
really
also think
up.
about, there are a couple different types of scenarios that we've created for Civ 6. So we've had, we talked about Gifts of the Nile before, and that I think most people play it as a single player game. The other play as Egypt or Nubia, but that's a great 1 versus 1
for
multiplayer game.
Right.
Carl and I duked it out sevele times. I think inconclusively in those results.
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. But there also are 6 to 8 player multiplayer scenarios. So we had. Like Ancient Rivals is one of the scenarios that we did that we highly recommend. That's a fun, quick multiplayer game. And then there are the full-blown sort of very thematic scenarios that we've done that are more like a single-player experience, maybe like the Black Death scenario that shipped with Gathering Storm. So there's all sorts of possibilities. The mod community is great at being able to sort of take these tools and come up with a really creative ideas for how scenarios could be set in a Civ game world, Civ game engine. So we're really looking forward to seeing what everyone's going to create for us.
So with that, I think we've wrapped up what we wanted to show you today. Obviously, if you have further inquiries, you're really interested about what's going on and what's going on with the tool itself, don't be afraid to stop by any of those communities. We're all lurking there. Sometimes we're chiming in. And we'd love to continue to get more feedback because we want these tools to be as amazing as we think they could be. We just want to continue to realize it month by month, improvement by improvement.
And just again, a reminder that the basic quick overview of what WorldBuilder, that video went up this morning.
Right.
This will be up on demand for everybody to take a look at. So if you want to kind of see what the full feature set for WorldBuilder is going to look like, they can replay this stream anytime they want. And there are going to be updates coming up.
Yep.
And so keep posted. Look at all the regular social media outlets, and we'll be looking at the community, and we'll have more information about our next update soon.
And once again, thank you to the best fans in gaming.